Hey guys, welcome to Level Up Session 50. Today we have a very special day because it's our 50th session and it's also 1 year since Level Up, the concept of Level Up was first conceived by Darek and Wojtek in a McDonald's somewhere in Poland. And today for our 50th session, our guest is Feng Zhu. Hi Feng.
Hey everybody, thank you for the invite. I'm really happy to be here. Hello
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks a lot for joining us today. We're really happy to have you. Let me start by introducing Feng to our viewers. I'm assuming most of you know him, but I will do it anyway. So Feng Zhu is a veteran concept artist. He's been working in the entertainment industry as a designer and concept artist for a long time. I guess since 1999 when he started his Feng Zhu Design company. He's worked on a lot of big projects and with a lot of big clients such as Warner Brothers, Lucasfilms, Epic Games, ILM, all those things. Feng also has a design school, entertainment design school in Singapore called FCD School of Design. But yeah, we might be talking a little bit more about that later. And yeah, so Wojtek will show you some work right now.
Yeah, they're
And
up. They're up now.
I will give the voice to Feng to introduce himself to our viewers.
All right, thank you for that lovely introduction, man. You make me sound all like special. I'm just another guy doing my work. Yeah, my brief introduction. I started actually before '99. I started in '97. Was an internship project on a very old movie called Soldier, with who's in it? That dude, Van Damme, I think, one of those films. No, not Kirk Russell. I think Kirk Russell. And then my first job was I went to Art Center, and a group of us were drawing entertainment design at the time when entertainment design was still quite rare. So we were drawing aliens and monsters when everyone else is drawing cars and products. So we got a lot of flack for that from the teachers, but it sort of paid off because I got spotted by a producer at a GDC. This is 1997 or 98, somewhere around there. And he hired me to work on, at the time, they were doing, I think, the most popular MMO at the time, which is Ultima Online. So they wanted to do a space version called Wing Commander / Freelancer Online.
Okay.
So I was trying to work on that project. So I spent about a year on that sucker, but it was just way overwhelming because I think the technology, what they wanted to do is basically what Star Citizen is doing right now, what Chris is doing with that game. At the time, we just couldn't do it with the 3D software. So, and it happened that EA bought us at the time. EA bought the company Origin System was in 1998. I think EA acquired them. And at that point, the producer decided to leave and took me with him to a startup company. So I had my first experience with startup very early on in my career and went from there to another startup, worked on a game called Battle Realms there. And then I got hired to Blur Studio, which did a lot of stuff. They're based in Los Angeles, Venice. A lot of commercials, video games, movies, all sorts of stuff. And I spent about a few years there and went up to Lucasfilm for Star Wars, working with a bunch of friends of mine. That was quite a lot of fun. And let's see what else I do. And after that, went to a variety of game studios. I never worked in-house. I think Lucasfilm is pretty much the only one, even though that's contract work, but I have to go in-house. I prefer freelance ever since about 1999. So I always work freelance, and about 2006, after working on a couple of movies, I kind of decided to do something different. I think at that point in my career, you're looking at the stuff you worked on, and a friend of mine asked, where are you going to be in 5 years? And I really couldn't answer that question. It was one of those things where people ask casually, but I took it seriously, going like, actually, I don't know where I'm going to be, because in terms of films, at that point, we worked on some pretty big stuff. That was at the end of Transformers. And you look at your career, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't really get bigger than that kind of film in Hollywood. So I actually moved to China. I completely disappeared. I partnered up with a friend of mine from a long time ago. So we started a business up in Beijing. Moved out there, never been there before. Moved out to Beijing, started a game studio, and spent about 3 years completely not as an artist, but as a business entrepreneur, developing the company for acquisition. So in 2009, we were acquired. And then that company was flipped over, and then I wanted to do something else different. At that point, I've come to Singapore for a few times and really liked this country. Thought that business here was really nice. The country is beautiful, And one thing I noticed was the lack of kind of education in the entertainment field. There really wasn't any. At least concept art. I think there's a few that does 3D, but in terms of concept design, there was zero. So I decided, hey, why not give it a try? We'll start a small school and just see what happens. And it's kind of grown much bigger than we thought it would within the last 5 years. And that's where I am today. Yeah. So that's my intro.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really cool. I didn't know that you lived in Beijing. How did you manage that? Did you speak Mandarin at all, or did you just?
I speak a little bit, but I had a producer with me who's basically was my translator 24 hours a day. And also the younger kids there, they're pretty westernized. You can speak English and they understand almost everything, especially talking about gaming guys who play games ever since they're young. They have a pretty good grasp of English anyways.
Okay, I see. Yeah, it's very interesting. So could you tell us, Feng, a little bit more about the school that you're running now and how it's developed over the last 5 years and what your plans maybe are for the future with this FCD school?
Sure. Well, our focus always has been just fundamentals. I think those who watch my YouTube videos know that as well, because I believe that's the core of, I mean, if you want to take this business and really, really get hardcore into it, you have to start with the basics. And that's pretty much all our school does. We don't promise our students that you're going to graduate with a stellar, sexy, awesome portfolio. We tell them you'll graduate with something that you understand how this works, and it's up to them to do what they want with it. And I think that's been working quite well for us in the past 5 years. Students, we've seen guys coming in drawing stick figures and leaving with pretty nice portfolios within a year period. So, but we do work them really, really hard here. This is a very difficult school. It is not a hobby school. As we tell a lot of guys who try to enter the school, you don't do this for fun, really. It's work. And I think in the future we're not going to grow much bigger. I think the school right now is at a pretty comfortable size. I think anything bigger, we're going to start losing that teacher-to-student ratio. That's not going to be that good, I think. So, yeah, so far so good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was lucky enough.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I actually visited your school in 2012, I think, and I had a tour around the building. I think you guys just moved to a new building. And yeah, it was really nice and cozy inside. I talked to some of the students back then. It's fun atmosphere. All right, so people, if you want to find out more about Feng Zhu's school, you can go to fengzhudesign.com. That's his personal website, and you can go to fcdschool.com for more information about Feng's school. So check that out if you're interested.
I'll commercialize. I promise I did not tell these guys to say these things. You don't have to promote anything.
Well, we just promote every guest.
Exactly. So it's not.
There's no need.
You guys are giving us time, so it's the least that we can do in return for our guest, I think.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, so I will switch to your screen, Feng. I see you put up some of your early work, and yeah, maybe there's something you want to tell about these.
Yes, you guys asked me to show some embarrassing work, so here it is. This is 1999, 98, somewhere around there. So this is the first game I worked on called Wing Commander Online, or Freelancer Online. I don't know which one it is called. It never got made, again, because of the technology. We had it to a pretty playable state, but this is 1998, so could you imagine the 3D was really, if you look at Wing Commander Prophecy, it's using the same engine, I believe. So it's about that type of thing, but the dream of it was big. It's exactly what Star Citizen is. You're a space bounty, you travel the galaxies, finding things to do, being your own Han Solo, that type of thing. So here are some designs for you could be a what do you call this? Freight. So you could carry freight from one plane to another. If you get attacked, you could hire guys to protect you with fighters. It's all this kind of like cohesive MMO type of thing. Fighters, hangars, get your ships fixed.
So these are done just purely traditional, or you used, or is it a digital painting, or is it a mixed media?
Yeah, it's mixed. This is me dabbling in Photoshop because the school I went to, we really didn't touch Photoshop much because this is probably Photoshop version, I don't know, 2 or 3, some pretty early version. So I was just kind of doing this random. That's why the lens flares. I don't know if you guys remember.
Oh yeah.
Back then, so it's in every painting. Look at that, it's in every painting. It was so cool to put this in there. But yeah, it's drawn on paper and then really crappy. There's actually some 3D in here from the studio. They provided these asteroids, and these probably took hours to render, if I remember.
Yeah.
From SGI machines, just to render those 4 or 5 rocks, it took forever. So
God.
early days. Yeah, some pretty bad colors and these type of things, but fun stuff.
So when you're looking at these right now, do you feel like there's some particular things that are like style related that's still maintained in your work nowadays, or like do you still see yourself in these pieces?
I think so. I think my design always has been this gun head thing. Like everything looks like a gun to me. Like this thing looks like a weapon. Everything looks like a gun because someone told me that before. Like everything I do looks like a gun, which I guess is pretty true. You can see there's a gun in everything. So that's remained. But I think that the design style has certainly aged on these drawings. Back in the days, really was. It's not like today where you could go to the internet and hit like 1,000 images within a few minutes of search. Back in the days, there was nothing to look at. There's like Star Wars, and that's about it. Maybe some Star Trek. There was no resource for entertainment, so we're really limited in terms of design language that we're grabbing to. So, it was definitely very different doing work back in the days than today.
Yeah, exactly. So gathering reference and looking for your sources. So that was mostly done by watching movies or magazines or books.
Yeah, books. Go to Borders, and what's the other one? Borders, and there's another store basically that we go to all the time. And the studio was, this is Origin, so they're pretty well funded. So they give us a pretty good budget for buying books. So every maybe 2 weeks, I'll go to the bookstore and just buy 10, 20 books, and they'll actually pay for that, which is quite nice for them. So that's the only way really for us to grab references at the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays people are not appreciating books enough with the internet, but I still find that books are just such a great way to find, really condensed and well organized information and visuals that you cannot find on the internet. I think it doesn't beat it yet.
Oh, definitely, and I try to do that for our students here. I bring in these books I have from almost like 10 years ago, and it just completely opens their eyes. Because the one thing you have to remember is that books have copyrighted material. So Google Images will never find them, right? Because no one's going to scan in these copyrighted books and have Google available. So you're looking at images that you can never find on the internet. And if an author is going out their way to do, say, like French villages or something, they're going to spend some serious time looking for some really nice photos and locations that this will never appear on the internet. So a book, I think, sometimes gives you to the resource much faster than on the internet if you know where to look in terms of the book.
Yeah, and it's the same for the artwork from the past. For example, I just bought a book about Orientalism here in d'Orsay, in the museum in Paris, and you cannot really find any of these pieces that are in the book anywhere else than the actual museum. You cannot find them online anywhere, so it's just really, it's a really unique experience. So if you guys have encountered any good books, don't hesitate to buy those and treat them as your reference. So yeah, I think that's the main point.
Another way to look at it too is like books are investments. If you take good care of them, I still have books from my school days, and they're still in very good condition. So they'll last you for your entire career. So that $50 book over time essentially becomes zero if it pays off for you. So I have a lot of books in my library.
So again, guys who are watching, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat with a big question before, because I know there's a lot of stuff happening in the chat. So if you have any questions, I'll try to pick them up from the chat. Don't get frustrated if I don't. I will do my best. All right. So from now on, I think the demo started already. So I think
On my brush.
yeah, it paints for itself, right? All right, so if you feel like you want to show us some of your techniques, or yeah, I think we have something special prepared for today, right?
We do? Okay, I'll try. Well, let's see. What I could do is, as I draw, I will answer whatever questions you guys have, since I'm pretty used to doing this. Let me close these real quick. I'm pretty used to talking while painting, so it shouldn't be
okay, so we have been talking about doing an IP redesign, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we picked a franchise as well. Do we have?
So I saw that the Dark Souls IP got a lot of likes.
Yeah.
I don't mind because it's cool IP, I had to steer clear of, because I actually recently did a project with From Software. So I got to be a little careful with what I do with this one, since we can't let them stack together. But it shouldn't be,
Yeah.
I think, so because that game is something else. So let's, let me just get started. But I do want to do something kind of dark. I think it's faster in general. So let's see here. Let me just I'll start with a photograph, and then I'll lay in some basic colors. Not bad. It's Google Hangouts. It's actually pretty fast. I'll use this as a base just to get a overall color palette going.
So these photos are these just random things that you pick because you like the palette and you can see how you'd be able to integrate into a painting, or they're your own photos, or?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they're just random clip art from the internet that they're very low res in that way. So hold on a second as I set my brush here. Okay. They're super low res, and I just want them for the colors, and that way I could quickly get to a painting really fast without worrying too much about the color palette. And because the job I do really, especially these days, is just what you call it, design. Mostly clients that come to our studio no longer cares about. I mean, they do care, but the quality and detail takes a very back seat these days for the kind of projects I do. They're more about just the ideas. Like, give us a landscape, give us a different kind of world. You don't have to finish them 100%. Just get it to a point where it's starting to communicate, and that's all they need. So this process for me is really fast for that. Yeah.
So you've kind of perfected your approach to what you're being asked to do, and what's the most efficient way of doing it?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think when I first started, it wasn't like this. It was basically what most junior artists do, which is a lot of labor-like work. You know, you're drawing orthos and you're drawing very detailed things. But as the career started going forward, it gets more and more bigger picture, I should say. And then the detail stuff takes a backseat, which sometimes I do miss. I miss those 20-hour drawings and things like that, but I just don't do them anymore. Most clients want 4 or 5 paintings in a single day. So the only thing I could do is put stuff.
Yeah.
Right now, let's make a some kind of cathedral thingamajig in a little lava pit or something. I hear kids.
Yeah. That's because Jonas is trying to get a connection from a really weird place because he is stuck in during his travels now, and I just muted him for a while. I guess there's some people crossing by. So yeah, that's how professional we are. I mean, only I am here in a comfortable place to talk. So Jonas is trying his best to stay get the quality right. So don't worry about him. If there are some surprises. So coming back to the IP you're trying to redesign, are you doing some kind of research before? You're basing it on the visuals, on the text, or on the story? What are you trying to what's your source of knowledge for the IP you're trying to redesign? Is it mostly visual?
So on a professional job, when I'm approached by that, I generally stay just to the core story only. Actually, a lot of clients want that as well. They don't want you to kind of, I guess for gamers, they'll probably not like hearing that, which is like, hey man, you're not going to care about the IP that much. But to the market, what they're actually doing is they're rebooting the name. Oftentimes, they change quite a bit of the content. Yeah. That's how the industry flows. It's really hard to like, hey, let's stick 100% true to the IP. It's very hard to push for that because for the reboot, they're actually targeting a different audience as well. Audience who might have heard the name but have never played the original is common. So if you stick very true to it, sometimes it actually hurts the IP as well to a certain degree. So I definitely know the story for most IPs I reboot, but they want you to start pretty fresh as if you're just doing something completely new. But definitely the mood, like in this case, if this is the next Dark Souls or whatever it is, I want to keep that dark, ancient, medieval. I never played the game, but I do know it. That's pretty much how much research I do on them, or watch a YouTube video for a while. That's interpret what it is. So, yeah.
Okay, so just YouTube videos and then seeing game in action. It's the best basically. Yeah, research.
Yeah, I don't have time to. I do try to play some games, but it's just To get into the games, the best parts, unfortunately, are towards the end of the game, right?
That's true.
So, and you can't get there unless you're actually getting good at the game itself. So
Yeah, which is like 40 hours. And
exactly. So if you play the first 10 minutes of the game, you're seeing not the best stuff. So YouTube video is much faster for that.
yeah, I find it really, like, I watched a lot of your videos, and thanks a lot for them. I mean, they were just an extraordinary resource for tons and tons of people. And I heard you talking about games and how they can trap students or concept artists wannabe. So basically, you wouldn't recommend playing games at the stage when you want to create and become a concept artist, right?
Well, I think I guess where you are in your career. For our students, for example, we tell them to stay away from it because they have enough to do for homework that these kind of distractions, especially games, is not the best thing because it eats up so much time. It's better to just kind of go have a longer dinner or chat with your buddies for a while because you could get away from that quicker. Versus a game, it's like one more level, one more experience points, and it suck you in. And we always tell you get into industry, you'll be sick of playing games because they'll make you play so much games that you'll be always anyway. So work hard, and then you'll be rewarded with hundreds of games on the job, anyways. Yeah. But games are, yeah.
I have a question from the chat regarding design sense. How do you make decision? How you make design decisions while painting anything? How you make your key decisions in terms of design sense and direction?
Sure. I think in my earlier career, that took a lot of research because your mind just isn't developed yet, and your hands don't flow as freely. Nowadays, I think we've just been doing this for so long, it gets to a point where you could kind of know your compositions and shapes depending on what kind of project you're on. So something like this is quite, I don't want to use the word easy, but it's a little bit default for me. It's not challenging. For something that's, say I'm working on a 1970s game or something, that will slow way down because you cannot do what I'm doing right now, which is kind of jazz painting, as I like to call it, where you're just filling in composition, filling in negative spaces with cool-looking shapes, and it usually results in a whole thing, but it doesn't do the harder stuff. Like I said, like a 70s game or something like a cowboy-themed Western game, you cannot really use this to a very large degree. So that requires research, grabbing images, preparing all your photos beforehand, and usually with a nice line drawing before I even paint anything.
Okay, so how often do you go for a line art approach? Is it because you are trying to design something, then you go for a line art, or if you're trying to get for a mood, you're going for a painterly style? How do you choose from all of these? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly right. If it's a mood painting that clients want, then I'll start with usually what I'm doing right now, which is a kind of a free-form painting. But the clients are looking for, like, we need an aerial drone built by NASA for the year 2030. It's actually much faster to draw it first because they have a very specific need that even things like photo batching and stuff doesn't work that well because they'll have things like you must have like forward camera, back camera, and flying kind of like this vehicle from this reference. And that point, it's much faster just to draw. Yeah.
Another question: how do you deal with shape design? You mentioned it just a moment ago. How do you choose which shapes to draw? Yeah, exactly.
I'm like too old these days, man. I just use the same shapes. I look at my work and it's starting to look like the same to me. I think most concept artists, I don't know, maybe me, they get to a point where you're starting to recycle your own shapes. I look at my older work. I think I was definitely more exploring things a lot more because back then you look at reference images and find a cool, say a leaf or an insect or something. Like, man, that shape is really, really cool. Let me try to work that into a design. Nowadays, I'm a little bit more lazy, and I'm just kind of relying on stuff I memorize versus looking at something new. So for students, definitely explore more than what I'm doing, which is kind of randomly drawing, which is look at shapes. I could do a demo on that actually. I'll show you. Let me show you.
Yeah, that would be great.
So let me save this real quick. For example, let me go here. You could grab pretty much anything, like something like this, like just a cathedral, and you just grab shapes kind of randomly in there. Let me start a new canvas, and you could just instantly make stuff because the human brain or things that are man-made in general are symmetrical. You know, almost everything that man makes is symmetrical. So by mirroring, you actually could produce fast things really quickly that has interesting shapes, and you're letting the negative space do the form definition. So in this case, using random shapes to produce a new shape. Let's see here. Let's do another one. So this guy's kind of neat looking, whatever that is, spaceship. Let me grab something else. So this is a very fast way to grab shapes. So you can see here. Just kind of randomly lassoing a piece of random thing because the negative shape, what's forming inside, is what I want. Oops. And you can see that creates something nice that I normally wouldn't do if I was drawing like default stuff. I wouldn't come up with this shape, I think.
Yeah.
Like that little frog-looking spaceship. And it's something we show our students as well. Just like look beyond comfort zone, I think. Grab random.
Yeah, that's a part of the invention we have to have as a concept artist to find another sources of inspiration, like generating ideas, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that. So it's when you're in a bind to draw, say, new spaceships, this will work really, really fast, helping you find shapes. And since you're starting with the same shape, you're repeating the patterns, and repetitive patterns also works quite well in design. You have this nice 1, 2, 3 breakdown, right, of big, medium to small here. But yeah, this is a pretty effective way. There's 1.
Yeah, that's great.
3.
Yeah, and they tend to work with each other because they're basically same shape. So even though they stretch, our mind reads them as the same language.
Yeah, and then in Photoshop, if you already have this, we ditch this. You could basically use Photoshop's tools to skew this into a perspective. All right, so you could let me see. I'll just draw it like in a basic view like this. So you can skew these guys. Oops, too much. Say something like that. And then yeah, if you know how the fundamentals work, then it's pretty basic to draw on top of it.
Yeah, to extract, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And then extrude it. So these are all little tricks, I guess, I use because in production, as you guys probably know, speed is a vital thing when you're working, especially freelance. They want stuff really quick, really fast. So it's all part of the process. So yeah, oops. So you can extract it and draw it out nicely. So right, let me go back to this guy.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the demo. I have another question regarding learning. Do you think you can learn fundamentals at home? How can I learn these things if I'm unable to attend a school?
Yes, that question we get a lot, and the honest answer is, of course you can. You don't need any school to do any of this stuff. The only thing is you have to be quite disciplined in that aspect, because what a school essentially is doing is that it's sort of forcing you to be in a location, do homework all day. That's pretty much it. So, hold on a second, let me close this. So what a school does, it does 2 things. One, it surrounds you with peers that are doing something very similar, so you're not working by yourself. The other one is that it greatly reduces the time it takes to learn, because you have someone next to you who's telling you, this is not working, or that is not working, this looks good, this doesn't look good. So it's much faster. Whereas learning at home, you have to discover those mistakes on your own, and that can slow you down. So it depends. If you're very young, say 17, 18, 19 years old, you can just learn all of this at home. Everything we teach is online. You can find everything out there on books. So if you have the discipline, to sit down for a few hours a day, then you don't. Yeah, there's no need to go to school at all.
Yeah. So, what the school is unique about is the environment, the deadlines that it fits you into, and mindset. Maybe the peers, the teachers. That's what unique about it, right?
Exactly. I mean, I look back at Art Center, which is also excellent school for this kind of stuff. If I think back, what I actually got from there, it's just the peers that you're with. You're drawing with someone who shared the same passion, and that keeps your energy going at 3 in the morning when you're working hard. On your own, I think most people, at least for myself, if I'm by myself learning, I think I'll just play video games for sleep when I'm tired. Where in school you can't because you got 5 guys next to you all staying up all night trying to paint something. You're like, oh man, I gotta do this too. And that basically is the time-saving part. It makes you work more hours than you normally would on your own. So essentially, you learn the same thing, just much more accelerated. Yeah.
Great.
Oops, hold on. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
All right, back in business. I didn't have my power plugged in. All right.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, so I have another question about your designs. So your designs seem to flow so naturally. What did you do to build your visual library? How did you develop your design sense, and what do you do today to expand this?
I guess the best answer would just be a really big nerd, man. I'm pretty nerdy, man. I look at a lot of things out there, constantly. I don't look at concept art actually. I read. I don't know. This might sound weird, but when I'm on my own, I don't really. How do I put this in the best way? I like what I do, but I don't focus on it that much. I do it as a job. What I actually like to do is design, which has nothing to do with the art side at all. So I'm constantly reading like Wikipedia, listening to shows about science or space and whatnot. I focus a lot of time on that kind of thing versus like art techniques. That's why I feel like my stuff is very ancient actually, because I haven't updated the way I work in years. I think when I look at some of you guys, young guys out there, trying all sorts of cool brushes and things, I'm pretty behind in terms of that. But at the same time, my clients, they generally don't care about that stuff anyways. They care about design. So yeah, so to build a visual library, it's really about, I travel quite a bit. If I see something quite nice on the news, I try to make my way there in person to see it. So those are the kind of things I do, and read a lot of books. Right now, for example, I'm trying to finish up every Michael Crichton book, the Jurassic Park guy. So I think I'm down to 1 or 2 more, and then I'll be done with him, and then probably move on to another author and try to finish every book has written as well. So that builds tremendous amount of visual library, at least for me.
Yeah. I heard you mentioning these in your video that is specifically devoted to building your visual library. So guys, if you are interested, you can find it on Feng's channel. I don't remember which episode is that, but we will link it
on my channel, man.
I mean, don't worry about it. Okay. I think there's only good things from it. So there are only good things from it. Okay, so
yeah, I learned so much from watching the video. So guys, definitely check out Feng's channel on YouTube.
Yeah, there you go. Again. I wanted to mention, considering what you said, Jonas is traveling as well a lot, and he was mentioning it the same as you. Looking at concept art, when you're trying to get inspiration, you're kind of switching to the mode of getting into trends and maybe grabbing from something that is already popular, and sometimes maybe it's better to actually get an inspiration outside from the industry. Like Feng's just said, traveling is a great part of it, books, and yeah, the sources that are not so mainstream. Yeah, if you go to CG Hub, now it doesn't exist, ArtStation, for example, or whatever, Dark Road, then you see a lot of art that is that's really popular, that is really cool, but what you tend to see is art that is really popular, right? That is trending, that is
you feel like a lot of stuff becomes derivative because you're
yeah.
sort of watering down a watered down version of something that's been watered down. So I think it's always good to go back to the original source. Look at nature, look at the real world, and you will see like how much beautiful inspiration is out there. That's so unfiltered and pure that you will not find if you only look at other people's concept art. So I think that's
Yeah,
a real pitfall, honestly.
that is something we mentioned quite a bit here because that's exactly the problem we deal with, because especially students when they're coming in with a little bit lower visual library, they tend to draw what other people are drawing. So, and then if you think about what their job is, that's not what we want to hire. You know, if we're putting a new IP, we don't want you to be ripping off another guy's ideas and shapes and stuff. You know, I think the internet plays a huge role in that. If I think back to when we were doing stuff in the early 90s or the early 2000s, you could not see concept art, you know, because companies keep it extremely hidden. There was no art of, really very little art of books. There's no behind-the-scenes DVDs. There's only VHS tape. So you couldn't get a taste of anything anyone else is doing. You couldn't see behind the scenes until the actual product comes out. So we spent a lot of time trying to find our own stuff versus like, oh, what's that guy doing, or what is this guy doing? There was none of that if I think back to that. Whereas now I think there's a lot of, oh, this guy's drawing you know, robots with this, or this guy's drawing post-apocalyptic Fallout or Last of Us stuff, and then you just see a ton of it. But there's nothing wrong with that, I think, because as long as you're drawing, it's good. I think another way to think about it, besides just looking at references around the world, is you have to do this for yourself. I think that's the key. Because sometimes I ask our students, like, why did you paint this painting that looks like something from Naughty Dog? You know, it's like, looks like another Last of Us or something. Yeah. And he's like, well, I thought it was cool. You have to ask, why is it cool? It's like, well, because the game was really big. You know, this game was really cool. So I go, then you're kind of just doing fan art of Naughty Dog's work. It's not really your work. So what we try to do is like draw what you want to draw. You know, when you're a kid, when you went outside to play, what kind of world did you see in your head? Don't be afraid to do those things. Don't do it for the Facebook likes. Don't do it for the Twitter followers. You know, because I find that sometimes they're doing it for those reasons, which is like if I draw something from Last of Us, then a lot of guys know what this is and they'll like my work. Versus like, man, look what Frank Frazetta was doing. Look what Sid Meado's doing. They're doing their own stuff. They're doing their own visions. They don't care who's looking at it, you know. And I think that gives you a design sense that's yours. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As the world started to become smaller because of the internet and sources of inspiration that became really easy to access, I feel like there's much less uniqueness in terms of design sense, or yeah, in general, in concept art, it started to blend together a little bit, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. But yeah, I don't see as many like unique personalities as you would see in 80s or 90s or.
Oh yeah, like you know, you see like Chris Foss and all these guys. Everyone's different, right? Back in the early 90s and 80s.
Yeah.
Everyone's identifiable. I feel like my work is also getting generified. Part of it has to do with the industry itself. You're talking about major clients. They tend to stay safe as well on their end. So no matter how imaginative you are as a designer, at the end of the day, they don't want that per se on a project sometimes because it's too much risk. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. Really simple one. What is the first thing you do before you sit and start a new piece?
Get really stressed out. I don't know. Yeah, it's stressful, man. When the worst stuff is like they call you with a spec like, we're gonna make the next version of Skyrim. We're gonna outdo Bethesda or BioWare or whatever, and it's gonna be the coolest RPG, open world, everything. We want the players to be awesome, and please make it look awesome and give it to us by next Friday. Good luck. And you're like, what do I do? You know, Skyrim is awesome. You know, what do I do? And so you stress out a little bit, and then you try to calm down and write some notes. That's what I do first, which is like, okay, if they really want to do a Skyrim type game, what exactly do they want? You know, as from a producer point of view. So you start writing down these things like epic scale and maybe cool graphics and cool locations, and you start narrowing stuff down. And I do a lot of notes before I start painting for reels in general. So and I use those notes to start thumbnailing the ideas down.
Okay, so you still find thumbnailing, even though you have such a developed workflow and process for your own pieces, you still find that thumbnailing really useful, right?
Yes, for designs that require specs, which are spec design, things that were to give me some pretty specific things. If I don't do thumbnail, I generally end up with just generic stuff. So I need to draw into.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any specific method of practice that you found very effective in the past?
Sounds generic, but sketching a lot in a sketchbook is something I'd like to mention as well. Sketching a sketchbook that nobody else sees. Okay, this is like important. We have a little survey we do at the school, which is we ask the students, how many of you guys have a really nice sketchbook, like a Moleskine or something, that is completely empty? And you get like half the class raise their hands, right? Because they want to say like, I'm going to save this sketchbook until my sketches are good, you know?
Yeah.
And then not drawing in it at all, or whenever they draw something very tight or something that it's not really a sketchbook at that point. They're doing it for making the sketchbook look good. So we tell them, hey, just go home, get some copy paper from the copy machine, staple it together. That's your sketchbook, right? So it costs essentially nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then draw anything you want, the worst drawings, the best drawings, whatever's on your head, draw, because that's what we did when we were young. We did not draw for the sake of making other people see it. We drew it to practice. So if you have that mentality of like, I'm going to draw whatever, it doesn't have to be good, it could be the worst drawing ever, that's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to improve, because you are finding mistakes, you are faced with things that you question yourself with, and all sorts of stuff come out when you're working on your own. And the sketchbook can never see the light of day. You know, after you're done, you can throw it away in the trash. You know, I think that's a really good way to practice.
Yeah, so that's one thing, getting mileage, right? Getting these drawings out, getting your hands moving, and then the second thing you mentioned is staying true to yourself and finding that what interests you, right? Because what you draw, you basically can draw anything. So yeah, that's just discovering yourself, I think.
Yeah, it goes back to that whole creativity thing you mentioned earlier, which is like you don't have to draw what the internet is drawing. You know, you can draw whatever you want. You know, don't worry about what other people think. Really, that's the key. It's like, if you want to draw something that you think is crazy, but there's a market for it, go draw it. You know, because maybe that's the next thing the market wants. You don't have to draw the next Skyrim and these kind of things. So yeah, be true to yourself is so important.
Okay, so question regarding graduating. What is the toughest challenge FSD or other design school students face after graduating?
Finding work is the key, because studios, especially the bigger ones, generally don't like to hire students. Not because they don't want to, it's that they don't need to, because they're at a scale in which they have professional. I'm telling our students, like, when you graduate, you're applying to a studio that professionals of 10 years are applying to, you know? So the studio, therefore, could have their pick guys with more experience, and it's nothing to do with your portfolio. You can even have a stellar portfolio as a student, and they'll still reject you because they don't know how you are in the studio environment. And they'd rather have some other studio take a chance, you know, because you could be a total asshole, you could be an egotistic kid, you could be weird, you know, they don't know these things. So a lot of studios would not take that chance with you, they'd rather let somebody else do that. So students have the hardest time, even some of the best students with really stellar portfolios sometimes have that problem. We try to do our role, try to introduce them to studios and assure them that they're okay, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's a challenge.
So you think it's mostly related to the quality of the portfolio or just to the experience of the artist?
Experience is pretty important because concept art, at least in major production, it's not even art. You know, it's making things. So some students don't know the pipeline of how things work. You know, like poly counts and skeleton systems and stuff. And those things will slow somebody down. It's not like it's necessary on the job, but to have a art director explain to you that you have to use a shared skeleton system, for example, that stuff it slows you down. Whereas someone who's been in the industry and shipped a bunch of titles, they already know all this stuff anyways. So they're just coming in to crank stuff out, and you don't have to worry about explaining technical things to them. So I think in that aspect, studios prefer to work with guys that shipped titles before versus straight out of school. So yeah, it's tricky.
Okay. Okay, so related question. I see a lot of people copying Feng's style. What advice would you give these people? Often their work is inferior to yours and looks like they're ripping off your style. Do you think this is okay?
First of all, find someone better to rip off, man. Go rip off the younger kids with nicer stuff. I don't care. I mean, really, this industry is built upon that. I mean, when I was in school, I was ripping off Sid Me like crazy, you know, because that's the only guy we could see the work. Because ultimately, if you're drawing, you're no matter what, it's going to help you learn, and we all learn from that. I think from copying somebody else. And just know that you're doing it. If you're doing it, then eventually lead to doing your own work. I think that's the important part versus like trying to pass it off as your own. Then that's not a good. But if you're doing it and go ahead, I'm just gonna copy Sid Mead for a while, and public can acknowledge that, then that's fine. And Sid Mead in that case is not gonna carry it, and ultimately you're gonna build up a portfolio hopefully, and those guys help you along the way. So I really don't care actually. It's I'm too old. Nothing really bothers me these days. Yeah.
Okay. Have you felt lost before? And what made you stay strong? Do you ever have a burnout or feel uninspired? And how do you manage to overcome that?
Yes, in the early days, that was really hard. I think artist block or writer's block, it's very common because you just don't have an experience, I guess, to deal with this. So it was very frustrating when I was younger. You would stay up till 4 in the morning and have like nothing to show to the clients the next day, and you're totally stressed out. But over time, now it's better. I don't think the answer is probably the most nicest answer, but in a way, when you have the next experience, you could start going default for certain things. A few years ago, Keikai was here. Guys, you guys know Keikai? Keikai?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
he was doing a demo, and I brought up that fact, like, hey man, whenever you get stuck, you could go default, and he immediately laughed because he knows what that means, which is there are a set of tools in our toolbox that if you're ever in trouble, you ever have artist block, you could pull those tools out and generate things that look pretty good, but they don't essentially are not that hard to do, Okay. So you could solve things, and at the end of the day, the clients are still getting something pretty neat, but it's not your 100% in terms of design, I guess. But you have to turn something in. So hopefully we don't rely on that as much, but those are things that could save you on a day, especially if the deadline is due within a few hours. That'll save you. Whereas in the early days, I didn't have that tool at all. It was just total stress.
So what are these tools? Are these like mostly traditional or digital, or what are these tools?
I guess a certain way to develop a look or a certain way to develop a shape, kind of like what I'm doing with this piece actually in a way. It has a lot of that kind of default stuff in there, like spikes, contrasting shapes, backlit, dark, lit with fire. These are all things that are visually strong when you show them to someone. Like, oh, that's kind of cool looking, but not that hard to actually do. So these are things in which, like, maybe we have to do 4 paintings. The first 3, you're burning all your brain cells on, and then the 4th one, you're just super tired. Then I'll do probably something like this for the 4th piece, and it's not hard, but it still looks kind of cool. So yeah, that's kind of like going default, I guess. That makes sense.
All right, I have another question. How important do you think politics are when it comes to finding work? If you don't know anybody in the industry, how do you overcome this bridge to get into the right circles? How do you feel about that?
Know who people in the industry? It's tough because knowing people helps a lot, especially if you know art directors and especially producers actually, because they're the ones actually who write the paychecks. So if you don't know, then you have to make yourself seen. Post your work on ArtStation and whatever art sites are out there. You gotta get yourself seen. And the thing is, a lot of companies are out there looking. They might not have an account. I know a lot of guys who look at ArtStation all the time. I look at it, but we don't have accounts there. It's mostly just to look. And if you see someone good, then the next thing you do is you find them on Facebook. It's like, hey, I saw your work on this site or DeviantArt in these places. So you have to make yourself seen. If you're hidden, and also have a very good persona, just post your work. Don't post too much personality type stuff, I guess, especially when you're beginning. So people can't reach your personality as much. That way you're just coming across purely as a designer, very good at your work, and focus 100% on that versus jabbering about or complaining about this or complaining about that. Just keep it very neutral to art only. And go to places like GDC, Comic-Con, E3. You'd be surprised how easy it is sometimes to meet professionals because they're all mostly very, very friendly. And if you have a pretty good portfolio, they're not going to not look at it. These companies are built by people like you guys. So if you have a good portfolio and you're very nice about it, go look at your work. And if it's good, you never know. They might hire you right there. So
yeah, so I guess convents and cons in general are rather underestimated, I would say.
They're different. I mean, when I was around at GDC, it was very much the other way around. It was like the companies are 100% awesome, and people were like starving students, like begging anyone to look at our work. You know, literally feels like we have zero power at these shows. But nowadays, because of competition, these studios are looking to attract you now. You know, versus like, oh, you're just another dude that we could throw away. A lot of studios are trying to invest quite a bit of energy and time and money into hiring the right people. So at last year's EDC, I've never seen a job booth so friendly towards students. You know, at Riot Games, Microsoft was there. I think Blizzard might be over there, and they're sitting down. Art directors, you know, art directors are sitting down with student types, and they don't even know if you're good or not. They're just sitting down with anybody, and spending a lot of time for everybody. You didn't see that when I was around. It was like HR have about 5 seconds to flip you work. If you sucked, you just like no. It's like next. Very, very mean, you know, in a way. Now it's like much, much nicer. So yeah,
it's good to see it changing.
Oh, for sure, a lot of changes.
Yeah, and besides that, you have a lot of workshops which professionals tend to be at as well. I would say Nomum Live. I would say Trojanors was a unicorn, a new workshop in Europe that is like third year already. Industry workshop in London. There are tons of them around the world, and yeah, that's a good thing to socialize with other artists as well, because it's not always, I think, about creating connections with art directors and producers only. Sometimes, you know, you get to meet another artists that are maybe a little bit on a higher level than you are, or and you tend to lift off because of them. You tend to get knowledge or meet people, or you don't know if that person in 2 years, if you will stay in touch with that person, maybe have a job that is, you know, that wants to get rid of, and maybe he will channel it to you, and then you get a connection from that. There's all sorts of connections, maybe not so direct, that you can develop through these type of things.
Exactly. Yep. And almost everyone in this industry is nice. So you could, you know, you talk to them. No one's gonna be like, "Hey, get away from me." Everybody's nice. So just be nice, and you get nice in return. You know? Yeah.
In your early career, did you ever have to work with bad clients? How did you deal with them? And what if this is the only work opportunity?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of bad clients. There's a client that change your mind all the time. It depends on how you define bad clients.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's the business. Depending on who you're dealing with. Some clients, they change their mind all the time, and that's up to us to decide, like, do we stick with this client, because it's at that point you're starting to eat into your budget. You know, if they're changing stuff all the freaking time, and then maybe finish a project and reject the next one with them. Some perhaps don't pay you on time, and that happens a lot in this business.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they'll actually pay you, but it just usually takes a long time, or sometimes they try to forget that they owe you any money. But those are things that's just normal. That's how the industry is. So it doesn't really bother me in that sense. But if they're really horrible to work with, just you know, skip the project on the next one. But I've been quite lucky that I haven't really had anyone I work with that I don't like. The end of the day, it's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't know. You know, clients are also run by other clients. They also have other deadlines. You know, sometimes, like, for example, we didn't get paid by a company. You find out later that they haven't been paid by their publisher. You know, so it's like back problems. So in a way, just be cool about everything, because you never know. One client that could be bad today could be awesome a year from now, because maybe they changed producers, or who knows, right? So we generally do that with everybody. We just be nice to everybody.
Yeah, that's a good advice in general, being polite and kind to not only your clients, but to your audience, and being supportive to the community. It's really important to maintain a good picture of yourself in terms of professionalism, and yeah, I guess that's a good advice in general. There's another question, Feng. During your journey so far, is there an individual that you have met along the way that you can say has fundamentally contributed to the way you work and teach now?
Yes, I think a friend of mine, I haven't actually worked with him in a long time, Ryan Church, has a huge dramatic effect on me, mostly at Skywalker Ranch. Just seeing, you know, he was also another art center guy. Some of the guys watching probably knows of him. He's not very social side. I think he hates Facebook and all those things like that.
Yeah.
But this guy is unbelievable in terms of in a student environment, how much work he cranks out. I mean, I thought I was pretty fast in 2003 until I ended up at the ranch and got my ass kicked by him. I mean, this guy was producing something like 9 to 10 paintings within 3 days, and they're gorgeous, gorgeous paintings, which you can see in the Star Wars books. He's doing 7 to 9 every 3 days. And it's just a discipline, it really showed me a discipline, because when he sits down to work, it was headphone on, music, and don't talk to me, and he'll just start cranking and cranking, doesn't get distracted, doesn't do anything distracting, and he's also extremely helpful. I've never seen him pissed off, and these are all traits I'm like, man, I want to be like that, that's how a professional acts. So yeah, he had a dramatic effect in terms of how I behaved in the industry, because back then I was really young. He's a little bit older than me, and probably a little bit more, I was immature compared to him, so I think working with him really matured me into a better designer. And also he helped me quite a bit in terms of digital painting. I had a hard time breaking in the beginning, and his advice was very simple, which is don't let Photoshop scare you. Just treat it like traditional medium. Pick one brush, no layers, right? Because layers is another digital thing. Yeah. And just paint the best thing you could do with one brush, no undo, one canvas, and that helped me tremendously to break into digital. So yeah, I think I thank him quite a bit for that.
That's awesome. So you worked together with them on Revenge of the Sith, right?
Yeah, and also Transformers as well.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, that must have been an awesome experience. So you seem to okay, another one. Do you ever find the time to do any personal work? Do you enjoy doing it? If yes, how is that related to your profession at work?
Yeah, and that's the part I think I mentioned earlier, which is like, besides doing this for work, on my off time, I actually don't do any concept art at all. I'm not really interested in the art side of it as much as before when I was younger. Nowadays, I'm actually more into entrepreneurship. Besides the school, I'm also running some other businesses, quite a bit of other things actually. So I'm focusing a lot of time on those things, working with other companies, developing technologies, these type of things, which has nothing to do with concept art. It's just my personal interest in things that are new and fresh. So yeah, I think if Letter is listening from ArtStation, Letter, I don't know if you're there or not. So yeah, we talked to those guys. Those guys work on ArtStation. We're talking to them now about developing some new technologies as well. So those are kind of things that interest me quite a bit versus concept art. So as soon as I'm done painting something, I'm off to do those things. Yeah, not much art.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find turning this off, this kind of art thing off, sometimes works just magic, because it gets you, gets some real life experience going, which can sometimes influence your art in a significant way, and without actually any direct force applied to it. So
yeah. I think older too, you have other interests. When I was younger, I mean, I live, breathe concept art 24 hours a day. Every day is looking at art books, going on concept art. Remember concept without work? That was like the shit back in the days. So I used to go there all the freaking time. So yeah, completely living and breathing artwork. So as you get older, you start getting families, and I have a dog that I gotta take care of. So you start having other interests as well.
Yeah, you had to breathe concept art, and you have to live concept art to get what you are now, right? It was, I think, necessary thing, don't you think? It was just like necessary for you to become concept art for some time to breathe and leave it for 20 hours a day.
Exactly, it's the same thing. If you're not breathing this thing, somebody else is, and if you're not, and they'll probably get in the industry before you do. So to stay competitive, you kind of have to live that life for at least 5-6 years until you're kind of established, and then you can take a breather, I think.
Yeah. How do you define established? Is it like you are able to pick clients, or you have so much work you don't have to worry about getting job, or what does it mean to you, established?
I think if you're full time, I guess after you ship probably about 2-3 pretty big titles, you're pretty safe in terms of like if you were to get fired from a company or you want to switch jobs, your chances of finding other work is probably very high once you have about 2 or 3 pretty big IPs shipped. In terms of freelance, yeah, I think once you have about 3 to 4 very steady clients that you don't have to worry about the next paycheck coming in, then it's a little bit safer. But it's never 100%. You never know what happens. But at least you could know that, especially some of the bigger clients, they could lock you in for like 2, 3 years in a project. Once you start having that, then you know, okay, I don't have to worry about my bills for for the next 2 years or something like that. So versus in the beginning, your heart is always beating whenever one job finishes. You're like, oh no, where's my next paycheck coming from? And that's.
You seem to manage doing everything with you sold to the skills. I hear more and more that 3D is becoming a must. How important are 3D skills? Can we survive as only 2D artists? Please share your personal thoughts and experiences about this.
Knowing 3D, I think, is actually really important these days. I'm actually seeing studios who actually will hire concept artists only if they know some ZBrush and things like that. So knowing 3D is quite vital, since that is the process right after 2D. All game studios and film go to 3D after that. So knowing some will be extremely beneficial. However, it's not if you have a really stellar design portfolio, I don't think studios will turn you down if you don't know 3D. But having 3D will give you that extra boost that perhaps 2 of you guys are applying to the same job and you know 3D, the guy next to you doesn't. Yeah. You got the same quality portfolio, then the guy with 3D will most likely get hired. So it'll give you an advantage for sure.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, it comes from my experience as well. Yeah, exactly. Knowing 3D is so important nowadays. When you are applying for a full-time job in a studio, for example, you will be given 3D assets of scenes or props or something that is like, yeah, confirmed beforehand from a director or from an art producer, and yeah, you will be working on top of 3D assets almost all of the time. So yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, I know some students that even have the concept guys build some of the stuff because that way it's true to their design. So they'll build a rough poly, at least a proportion-wise, and then pass that off to the 3D guys. So yeah, it's pretty important.
Yeah, so once the volumes are approved, then you get to paint on top, pick camera angle or whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah, so just a quick interruption. Guys, if you're watching it and you are unfamiliar with Level Up, this is a free online art community for teaching and sharing. This is session 50 with Feng Zhu. And yeah, if you want to know more about the events we are doing, check out our website. It's fullsroda.com. You can start from there. You can explore our Facebook community, and you can get critiques there. There are hangouts room that you can hang out with other art people. There's almost always one room full, so you can join and talk to other people. And if you like what we are doing, please thumb up this video and subscribe to our channel. All right, we are back to the questions. How big should your portfolio be before looking for work and freelancing?
That question, I guess, depends on if you have experience or not. If you have experience, then the project pretty much is your portfolio. But if you don't, I think you need about somewhere between, in my opinion, 20 to 30 pieces, somewhere in there, that shows only your best work. And then that'll get you noticed if your work is pretty good. And then have a follow-up sketchbook or something just in case they want to interview you and see more of your work. So yeah, that's generally works for most of our students as well. 30 pieces.
Okay. Jonas, you still there? You sound like you're not here.
No, I'm here. I'm browsing the questions and preparing them for you.
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
It's a full-time job because the chat is very, very busy today. We have like 1,200 people almost watching.
So Feng, coming back to the piece, what are you thinking about now? Where you are in the process? How would you rate that?
Right now I'm trying to do a little bit more refinement. So something like this would be what I do for clients these days, which is the bigger picture. So this, if this was a Dark Soul-ish kind of game, then the picture would be like the ground cracked open and these 5 towers spout out from them, and you have to go clear each one, and then when they fall, they go into a crevice or something like that. So that's probably the pitch. And normally I won't do just one of these. I'll do a follow-up, probably 2 more. In fact, I got some time. I could start another one. So that way, it's the same idea but executed slightly different. So right now, I'm going to put a little bit of detail, but not that much until I start the second piece. So,
okay. Are there any particular books, documentaries, or other sources of information you can recommend? Is there anything you've seen that hugely influenced you?
In terms of books, Scott Robertson's got a lot of good books out there from ESP. Well, he's got a ton of, and his stuff is very specific to the industry. So you're looking at the core of concept art essentially. So it's very much filtered down to exactly what you need to see. So his stuff is great. But in terms of just art of books, Sid Mead, if you like industrial design, Frank Frazetta, and I think these are probably mentioned before as well. Mm-hmm. But technique-wise, I think Scott's probably got the market on that in terms of how good his products are. Yeah.
Yeah, he's releasing his new book right now. If I recall well, it's called How to Render.
Yep,
Check it out, guys. Yeah.
That's how he taught me, by the way, for those who are wondering. I had his class a bunch of times. I got lucky when I first got to Art Center. They rejected me for my portfolio. They're like, you suck. You can't get into this school. Take some night course, and the night course I took was with Scott Robertson actually when he first came back from Europe. So that guy opened my eyes to like, oh, so this is real stuff now. It's not drawn on paper. You know, that guy makes it very, very pro. So yeah, definitely recommend his books.
Yeah, I remember watching his Naman videos back in the days about drawing through perspective, and yeah, that was really mind blowing how structured and how exact his process is, and how reaffirmed I felt when I was under the influence of his knowledge, because I felt comfortable knowing that there is a process for it. You know, before it looked like some kind of a black magic that cannot be handled by a human being, but he actually made it really manageable for people that wanted to do it and split it into really manageable parts. So if you were really devoted, and if you were willing to sacrifice hours in order to master that, you're able to. So that was really, yeah, he's one of the, I don't know, best teachers in the industry, I guess.
Exactly. His stuff is, and that's the philosophy we have here too. Is like anyone could actually do it if you put the time down, because there is a formula behind it. It is not, guts or these kind of things. You can actually break it down, and he does a great job of communicating that. So yeah, that's how I learned as well.
Okay, I have another question. How important are analog techniques like gouache or oils in becoming a better concept artist? You have a traditional background. Do you think it gave you any particular benefit that perhaps people who have started digital right away might have missed?
Man, that's a difficult question, because I've seen plenty of kids that have never touched traditional who are doing absolutely mind-blowing work. So if you argue that traditional helps, then those guys definitely are the opposite of that, because they didn't do it. So I think he helps, but I think in today's world, it's not a necessity anymore. But I think the feel of pen on paper is something that still is important. We do that here for about 6 weeks to 7 weeks. We make kids draw on paper, but that's mostly to get a nice feel for the medium. But I think that the industry moves with technology. So if the technology right now is digital everything and 3D and ZBrush, then that's probably where you could start off. I think the old argument, maybe us old guys still think is important, but I don't think it is as vital as it is before. So if you start drawing Photoshop, fine, totally cool, I think.
Yeah, I think it still comes down to the mileage, and when Photoshop started becoming popular, I think maybe it was over-abused in terms of, how would I say it, like amount of tools you could use, and it was actually distracting beginners. In order to get that mileage, you just had to draw with simple tools and learn simple hand movements or simple, drawing just straight lines. That was just a little bit harder with Photoshop. So that's I think where this old drama have started. So once you are smart about your I guess learning, and you know what tool are you using, and you know what are the downsides of it, then sure, I mean you can do it straight in Photoshop.
Yeah, it's not, I think Photoshop these days, especially if you have a Cintiq or something like that, it's pretty much drawing on traditional. Like it feels like paper to me when I use this software.
Yeah, you're on the Cintiq right now? No, you're on the Mac now.
I'm old school, man. I'm on a Wacom 3, really old. It's like 10-year-old.
Oh, yeah. It's indestructible.
Yeah, exactly. It's indestructible. You can use it for forever. This thing.
Yeah, it's too bad Wacom 4s and 5s the nibs started to wear out really quickly, and the surface it's like a little bit paper-like, and it gets scratches and it gets used out.
Yeah, seriously. This 3 I've been using for 10 years, and I haven't changed the nib yet. Seriously, I haven't changed.
Yeah, it just doesn't break.
It never breaks. So.
Question about your health. How do you keep yourself physically and mentally healthy while you're doing crazy amount of work?
When I was younger, not so good. I was working pretty much 18 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week for years, and started gaining a lot of weight and pretty much not healthy. Nowadays, a little bit better. I have a thing now where on weekends I don't do any work, no matter how busy my freelance is or whatnot. I don't work on weekends. So because I set that self up, since I'm getting a little bit older now, I cannot do the hours I did when I was like 20 years old. So, and I also have a trainer that I train a few times a week, just to, not hardcore training, just to get some cardio and stuff like that out there to keep your body healthy, because the business we're in is not healthy. I think if you choose to be a concept artist, in a way, it's kind of like one of those things going in. If you want a comfy 9-to-5 job, concept art probably is not going to be that, because it's just such a, not in terms of the studios making you work that hard. It's one of those jobs where you cannot shut your own head down. You know, you guys being concept artists know that, where you're having dinner and you're thinking about design. You know? You can't turn it off. You know, whereas like accounting or something, maybe when you go home you don't have to worry about your clients' accounts.
Yeah, it's hard to switch off. That's true.
Yeah, you can't switch it off. So that's the part that kills you, where you're just constantly working. So you have to set up some routines. Maybe on a certain days you just don't do anything. So for me, it's the weekend. I don't work at all on the weekend. Yeah.
I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize for making you draw on a Sunday then.
Oh, no problem. Nice. This is not work. This is fun. Work is like stressful things.
Okay, all right, sure.
Yeah. So even though you're freelancing, you kind of switch to that full-time mentality in order to maintain your mental and physical health, right? So you just divided your work, I would say lifestyle, into work and life basically, and the line between those is really strict.
Yeah, and also in LA, I used to freelance from my own studio at home, and that got really bad because you're waking up in your underwear and just pretty much stay in your underwear for the entire day and going to bed with the same clothes, you know, because you're at home, doesn't matter. So actually I started, I think in 2003, 2004, I actually rented a physical studio, so I actually go to work every day. And that made it much better, because then I could get off work around 6 or 7 and go home, you know, versus staying at work all day. So that helped quite a bit.
Yeah, being a workaholic isn't really helping when you're freelancing, because you tend to, you know, go all perfectionists on your pieces, and yeah, sometimes the time is stretching into your the time you spent working stretches into your own life's time, and
yeah, it's hard, man. Yeah, it's really hard.
Okay, Feng, have you ever thought about creating your own IP or directing a game or movie of your own?
Oh man, I don't know, maybe, but right now I'm actually I help other people do it instead. It's easier, I think. I just don't have the time, really. I think in a perfect world, if I could take off 2-3 years, then I'd love to maybe do something like that. But I just don't have the time with the school and other businesses. So these days I'm actually, you know, I fund other studios, basically financially to make whatever they want to do, and I maybe help them along the way. So play a part of art director here and there, but mostly it's hands-off stuff. So that's pretty much what I'm doing these days. And that, in a way, seeing other people's IP getting made, it's still just as cool, since you played a part in helping someone else realize their goals. Yeah.
Of course. I hope you don't mind that we are jumping from question to questions really fast. There is just so many questions in the chat. We want to get a lot of them through. If you want to take some time off to just paint, let us know.
No problem. I could talk and paint. So.
All right. So I have some more here. All right. So, in which countries do you think the game and movie industry is the biggest right now? Should I move to such country to get a job as a concept artist? I feel like it might be an easier to start in-house as opposed to freelancing when one does not have an industry experience.
Good question. I think the strongest, I don't know, if we're talking about movies, it's still the United States, for sure, because that's where LA and most cities surrounding that is where most movies are still being physically made, I guess. But in terms of games, US, I think, is still strongest in terms of the biggest budgets. I'm not sure if they're the best games, but the biggest budgets are still in the stateside. Europe is coming off extremely strong these days, Eastern Europe especially. Asia is huge, but Asia works with itself in that sense. Like they maybe in the next few years they'll start opening up a bit, but if you look at a Chinese game company, it's 99.9% Chinese people making it. They don't really work with too many Westerners out there. Same goes for Japanese and Korean studios. They're primarily themselves. So if you don't speak the language or of this, grew up in those countries, it's a little bit harder. So yeah, right now States and Europe probably the safest in terms of freelance work, that is.
Okay, so you think being in an actual place physically is important for some reason, or you could actually do it, for example, from Europe, or like what do you think?
Yeah, for freelance, don't matter. I think of all the clients I work with, freelance-wise, I think I met maybe less than 20% in person. The rest I've never even seen them in person unless I go to E3 or something. So it's all done remotely. Sometimes within the same city. I've done freelance in LA, and the guys in LA, but we never even met. So it's freelance doesn't really require you. As long as you're very disciplined in your deadlines and deliveries, then you should be okay. Yeah, especially now that the internet.
Yeah, so I guess it's just about networking, right? If you want to meet art directors, visit some studios, or yeah, I guess it's the best place to be would be United States or Asia or whatever you're aiming for.
Yeah, for film, it's pretty much you have to be on site. The film very rarely freelance stuff out. I mean, very, very rare. Because due to security and due to directors want to see your stuff all the freaking time, so they're not going to freelance out stuff. So if you work on a movie, you pretty much have to be in LA for that.
Another question. My sketches always look cooler than the finished rendered pieces. Is there any advice to keep that freshness on your final piece?
Talking about from like a sketch looks better than the final, right? Yeah. I think that's something we all know really well as artists. I think it has to do with, at least in my opinion, I think it has to come to do with your relaxed state. Like when you're sketching, you're not stressed out, so you draw very, very loose, kind of like when you're drawing for your own sketchbook. But when you turn into a final, you start to tense up. So what we try to do here is tell our students to, like, no matter if it's final or not, treat it always like it's a throwaway. This is never going to be shown. It's never going to face the light of day. It's a piece of crap thing they're going to throw away afterwards. And what that does, it kind of makes you mentally not fall in love with your piece in a way, and then you're actually therefore more loose when you draw, and those loose energy lines come out on your finals. Whereas when you're doing final stuff, you just tense up, and you can see when lines are tense. So, but it's hard. I think that takes a few years to train your mind to accept that kind of illusion.
Yeah, to loosen up, not be afraid to fail actually, and build on top of your mistakes sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Just like we mentioned earlier, do it for yourself. Have fun with it. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on practicing from imagination? While studying from reference, it's certainly beneficial. Would you still advise people to put their imagination only to work for practice as well?
Yeah, or do both. The best is take something from the real world and change like 10% of it. So, like you take a beetle and then just change the head a little bit. That way you're getting best of both worlds. You're learning about how the real world works. At the same time, you're implying a little bit of your own design, and then you're learning both. So I find that to be really, really helpful. Just take something real and change it.
That's great sounds.
It's like an airplane.
Had to mute you. All right. Another question. How important is support from your family and friends about what you do? Are you willing to share your personal experience in this regard?
Sure. Oh, excuse me, get a little drink it. For me, I come from a family that does not do what I do. Don't even know what I do for the longest time. So it was really hard. I did not do this from the beginning. I went to UC Berkeley, which is a university in California, to do architecture, thinking that's probably the closest I'll ever get to drawing anything. But I found it quite boring. So then I dropped out of Berkeley, which is a pretty good school. So to drop out of college was like a pretty big deal for my family. They're like, "What are you doing?" You know. And I was pretty much on my own since 16, earning my own part-time job and trying to find out where to go until I found Art Center, and that was really hard trying to pay for that stuff. My parents probably did not understand what I still don't think they understand what I do, even today. But it's okay. They know I do pretty okay in terms of paying my bills and stuff, so they're not that worried, you know. But I think not everyone's gonna understand. What we do is so hard to describe to people who are not in the business. They don't know what. And if you get frustrated doing that, then it's not worth it. It's just do what you do and don't worry about it too much. I think that's the key. But if you're having a girlfriend or a husband or a wife or something like that, then I think they need to understand a little bit, because you are going to be spending a lot of time in front of your computer, and they need to understand that this is your work and not because you're goofing off or not caring for them or something like that. So I have a wife that's understanding. She gets what I do. But that part I think is important. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I found it really hard to explain to important people in my life what exactly I'm doing, since it looks like a crazy man move to quit your job, for example, and start freelancing. They do not really understand that kind of a mentality and how the industry works, that you can actually live off from working at your home, for example. That's mind-blowing for some people. And yeah, so making your relatives and important people in your life understand that, it's really crucial for you to get comfortable with your work as well.
Yeah, it's really. I think my parents saw the credits for like a film I worked on. They're like, "What did you do? Did you do the computer part?" I'm like, "No, it's not." Just gave up. Like, it's okay.
Oh yeah. Okay, guys, Jonas is mentioning that there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the chat. If we will get more specific sometimes, like get more questions, less this caps lock things. I know you guys are excited, but yeah, we need more specific stuff. It gets flooded with shouting, with excitement. Okay.
Yeah,
so
everyone's just going crazy in the chat.
I don't know what the weird stuff is, man. Weird stuff happens.
As a new designer, it's easy to get discouraged because of professional work. Do you have any tips on overcoming this fear? I guess you answered it a little bit, but
what's the question exactly? How did this?
It's easy to get discouraged because of professional work you see every day. For a beginner, right?
Yes.
Do you have any tips on overcoming this fear of, looking at overwhelmingly good art on daily basis and still being courageous enough to produce your own?
I guess the easiest answer is like don't
look at it. Yeah.
That's what I do, man. Otherwise, it's you go to like ArtStation or something. There's like 1,000 good people out there. Just don't look at it, and then instead just do what you do. Because if you're good at what you do or get better at it, there are plenty of work out there for everybody. It's not like, oh, that guy's so good, so it's going to take every job. But if you do what you do, there's jobs out there for people. So instead of focusing on how good they are, just try to improve yourself. That's sounds generic, but it really does work. Just talk yourself into, you know what, I'm going to get better in the next piece, and better in the next piece, and don't worry about some other dude, because everybody is better than you. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's better than me. So there's no need to worry about getting nervous or something like that. Just do what you do. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to come back. This quote, let's say, be yourself and then stay true to your gut, and yeah, it comes down to. It's really funny how many times we repeat that and how important it really is, no matter at which level you really are. So I guess take that into account. Yeah, it's really important to stay true. I mean, following trends is also important. Maybe not following, but understanding trends and knowing what's happening in the industry, yes, you have to know kind of what's floating around, but choose if it influences you or not. Maybe choose the parts you like and don't blindly follow the trends. Or maybe if you like something, try to think, all right, why do I like it? Maybe there's a specific thing hidden in it that is not directly visual. Maybe it's something that, I don't know, influenced you in your childhood, or you visited some place that you're reminded of when you are looking at this artwork. Maybe you can, dig deeper and find your true inspiration somewhere in there. So digging a little bit deeper, I find it really interesting with my own stuff. So yeah, another question. What do you find most appealing about working as a concept artist? What is the greatest satisfaction?
I think seeing your products actually go on the shelves is the weirdest feeling ever. Because you're, as a concept artist, kind of removed from it anyways, because by the time the game or film comes out, your work is actually not in it in a way. So it's like a weird feeling that you're seeing your work, but at the same time it's not really yours because someone else, like a 3D artist, built it. But the satisfaction that you took part in it, I think is really rewarding for me. So for me, it was never about the art or like how good my pieces were or how bad they were. I really didn't care about that kind of stuff. It's always been about, man, I really want to work on this project. How do I work on this project? And if I worked on it, that brings a lot of satisfaction. And then to see it released and hopefully live forever in the entertainment side of the world, that's the most rewarding for me. And I think one of the things I remember was a long time ago, I was at Best Buy, which is a U.S. store, and I saw these two kids playing. I forgot what game it was that I worked on, and they were just like totally giggling and laughing. And that was really fun. It's like, look, I made an impact on somebody. These two kids are enjoying these things that was just a concept 3 years ago, and now they're playing with it. It's so cool to see that.
Yeah, one of the deepest drives behind concept artists is to create worlds that are that you can impact the people with. But I guess it's one of the drives that is like really popular behind it. So seeing people being affected by the stuff you create must be just mind-blowing, and yeah, it's a dream come true for every concept artist to see his set being built, if that's a movie, or you've seen your individual product going onto the shelves, or seeing your name in the credits.
And then to think like there's people out there who actually build my stupid drawings, like they spend so much time and money building this stuff because I drew it on paper. It's weird.
Exactly. It's like, hey, I just drew it, and you're investing like $2 million in building a set from it.
Exactly, and then they make a game out of it. It's like, whoa, so weird. But seeing kids, I think especially kids, young kids, laughing or having a good time with these games, it's so cool. Or see on YouTube and they're having a good time with it. It's great.
Yeah, that looks like the most honest opinion about your art or about your influence to the particular project, like seeing a kid really enjoying the world you created or being immersed. I mean, we all have games and movies that we were really sucked into when we were kids, and there are still people around these projects, and yeah, that's the like knowing by myself I was influenced by some universes or some IPs. And knowing that the projects we create as the generation can influence this older one, the younger generation, in the same way, that's really mind-blowing to be part of this cycle that drives inspiration. And you never know if you will inspire. I bet you inspire tons of people to become concept artists by this point. So yeah.
I don't know. I'm just a guy, man. I'm just a guy drawing stuff. So.
You know what? Actually, I'm one of these people. I remember I was starting out in 2007 and 2008, and I discovered your videos. And actually, I learned a lot of English because of listening to you speaking. You're speaking really fast, and you're fast-paced about your information you're going through in your videos. So that was really mind-blowing. It gave me like a true insight into the concept art workflow. So again, if people watching don't know, There is a FSD channel, of course. There are tons of videos there, more than we have ever produced here. And they're extremely, extremely useful and inspirational. You can find these videos, the link to them on our website as well, in the resources page. But typing in Feng Zhu Design Cinema into the YouTube search will give you the same thing. All right, I think we are close to a wrap up, right? We have agreed to 1.5 hours, and we have 2 paintings done that are gorgeous. So
So I'm trying to open the other one. I think the share screen is a little slow. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? You guys still there?
yeah, of course.
Yep, we're here.
Hold on a second. Open most recent. Ah, good.
So at this point, we would like to thank you for joining, and that was really inspirational. I bet tons of people enjoyed it, and we'll come back here. This video will be live right after the session. So yeah.
Thanks a lot. We're sorry if we were a bit rushed, but there were so many questions. We just had to get through as much as we can because we know you guys have a lot of questions for Feng, and you know it's a great opportunity to interact with him.
We can't get to everybody. Let's see. I mean, if they want, we could continue discussion on your Facebook. I mean, tomorrow when I get to work, maybe I'll try to answer some as well. Because I definitely, especially those who are learning, I think it's really cool opportunity if they have questions. I'd love to spend time answering them. So.
Okay, so guys, if you have any more questions, maybe try typing them into the event page on Facebook, and yeah, if Feng will have time, we'll try to respond to those. And yeah, I think that was the most productive session ever. Like an 1.5 hours, we got everything covered and have two
demos.
2 demos at the same time. That just showcase how. I don't know how productive you are and how many things you can get done.
Old man, you guys are like half my age, dude. I'm just trying to survive in this crazy industry these days. Yeah.
Oh, you're doing great. All right, so stay tuned for more info.
Hold up. We have one more important question, man. You cannot skip it. You know what I'm talking about.
Last question.
Yeah.
Would you rather be a Godzilla or a billionaire, and why?
We ask everyone.
A what?
Godzilla or a billionaire?
Huh. I think being Godzilla is pretty cool, man. Because money, at the end of the day, is just paper. It's a theory. Being a physical, big, giant monster, it's real.
Yeah, there you go. There's an answer. We asked this question to every guest. So, and we forgot last week, and we did 10 push-ups at the beginning of this session. So.
Yeah, right. Virtual push-ups, maybe.
Okay, so Feng,
you guys could change trillionaire. If you're a trillionaire, then you can make a Godzilla. You know what I'm saying? But billionaire don't have enough money to make a Godzilla yet.
Yeah, exactly. And you can smash things. I mean, how cool is that?
Exactly.
Yeah,
all
awesome.
right. Yeah, thank you so much, man. That was a lot of fun, and I'm sorry again if I couldn't get to all the answers. I know a lot of guys are asking, but I'll be online tomorrow as well, so I'll try to get to them at that point.
Okay, thanks a lot, Feng, and see you all next week. Stay tuned for more info about our next session next week, and subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, check it out. See you guys next week. Thanks, Feng.
All right, thank you.